Now, James Rickards, he's managing director at Tangent Capital, also the author of Currency Wars, the making of the next global crisis. James, welcome.
Thank you.
How close are we to a currency war, or are we in the middle of one?
We're actually in the middle of one, I would say. You're right, there was another warning shot from Guido Matanga the other day, but he mentioned this 2 years ago. The currency war really began in 2010, January 2010, when President Obama announced the National Export Initiative in his State of the Union address. He said the U.S. is going to double exports in 5 years. Well, that sounds fine, but how are you going to do it?
How are you going to do it?
We're not going to get twice as smart. There aren't going to be twice as many of us. The only way to double exports in 5 years is to trash your currency. And that's what the Treasury and the Fed have been doing, or trying to do, for the last 3 years. The problem with that is they haven't been succeeding very well, because their efforts to trash the currency by quantitative easing have been offset by the flight to quality because of fears of the euro.
Right.
So the Fed's answer is, if at first you don't succeed, try harder.
Try harder.
And that's why we have more QE.
But also other countries have responded by doing the same thing.
Correct.
So that also takes away the impact.
That's right. I was in a meeting in Washington the other day, and someone said, who's winning the currency wars? And I said, you know, everyone loses. That's the problem with currency wars. It's like a ping pong match. It goes back and forth and back and forth. But at the end of the day, not everyone can devalue against everyone else. What you end up with is either contraction of world trade, which we saw in the 30s and the Depression, or inflation, which we saw in the 70s. It could go either way.
I was going to ask you, what's the chances? So far, inflation is under control, but it could take off quickly.
Correct. Although when you say inflation is under control, technically you're right. It's been pretty well behaved. But there are deflationary forces from the Depression, inflationary forces from policy. So it's a little bit like standing on the San Andreas Fault, saying, well, it's not shaking and it's all good. But it's not all good. It's going to break one way or the other. I expect inflation.
Switzerland, China, Brazil, all pushing back.
Right.
How do they do that? By devaluing their own currency?
There are a variety of ways of doing it. Yes, devaluing your own currency is the goal, and the question is, how do you do it? Well, cutting rates is one. If you have room to cut, but some of these countries are at the zero bound.
Right.
Brazil and Switzerland, Brazil has been buying up the euro. Switzerland's been buying up the euro, shorting their own currency. Brazil's been imposing capital controls. If you put money into Brazil, you can't get it out right away. The right way to fight the currency wars is what Australia is doing, which is to embrace a strong currency and do things such as issue infrastructure bonds that can absorb capital inflows. And the other thing, if you have a strong currency like Australia, you should buy gold. It's a great opportunity. When you have the strong currency, buy gold.
Isn't it ironic that the U.S. has been accusing the Chinese of devaluing the yuan for years now, but they're doing the same thing?
All countries manipulate their currencies. It's just a policy tool like interest rates and tax rates. The U.S. is the greatest currency manipulator in the world. We're the best at it.
Very quick. And you're bullish on the euro?
Yes, mainly because a lot of Chinese capital is waiting to come into Europe. They wanted Europe to get their act together, which they now have. And China desperately wants to get out of dollars into euros. So that capital will come in and bolster the euro. And remember, people say you ought to devalue the euro. Well, you can't have a cheap dollar and a cheap euro.
That's right.
That's the problem.
Don't have both.
Right.
Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very interesting stuff. Currency wars. It's going on right now.
And we are the king of the currency manipulators.
Yes, king
apparently.
manipulator.
Why not? It's quite a title.
Yeah.
All right, well,